We will probably skip through just a couple of the slides, probably about the funding source, but I do want you to know that our office, under the formula grant in the Office of Elementary Secondary Education, we probably distribute over $28 billion in federal funding to states to support education, and that consists of the programs in my shop, and then also for Title I, but I'll show you a slide on that in just a moment. So once again, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here to establish or reignite this partnership. Listening to everyone this morning, I'm taking notes and thinking about ways and means in which we can collaborate. So once again, my name is Fatima Mohammed, and out of everything that was stated about my bio, the most important piece is that I'm an educator. I'm an educated heart. The best parts of my career have been as a high school science teacher. Everything else is secondary to me. Okay? All right, so our goal today is just to give a high-level overview of Title I, Part D. Also to talk about opportunities for collaboration that take place within ed. Hence, we are joined here by my colleague Curtis this afternoon from the Office of Special Education. And Curtis has a strong and passionate background in correctional facilities and supporting the rights of students with disabilities. So I am happy that he can join us today. And we'll also talk about opportunities to collaborate with OJJDP and our Technical Assistance Center, which Katie represents. Okay. All right, next slide, please. One more. Okay. Recently, our office went through a reorg, and within that reorg, certain formula programs were put together. And if you look to your far left, my far right, you'll see the programs that are in my shop that are highlighted and colored in green. These programs serve special populations. We're talking about homeless children by McKinney-Vento Act, which the gentleman from FISB spoke of, English learners, students that are neglected or delinquent with Title I, Part D, and then Title II, Part A. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. That's in reference to teachers and leaders, not Title II that you guys are referencing for your program. I'm speaking in regards to the Every Student Succeed Act, which was from ESEA, that was reauthorized in 2015. So that is Title II, Part A, which is about $2.3 billion alone. Okay? All right, the next slide. Okay, so Title I, Part D for neglected children or youth has two, and this is really challenging for me because I can't see my slides, so I'm gonna put on my teacher hat. I just need to stand up, okay? It has two parts to it, Subpart 1 and Subpart 2. Subpart 1 is funding that goes to the SEA, and that funding is therein awarded to state agencies. Subpart 2 goes to the SEA also, but that funding is awarded to LEAs, such as school districts, and it can be awarded as a formula or as a discretionary, meaning through competition. Okay, and Katie, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, so the goals of the program are shown here on the slide. There are a couple of takeaways I want you to see from this slide. One is that even though students may be transitioning back, one of the goals is that they have to have and meet a challenging state academic standard. The goal is to improve the educational service of the child, regardless whether it's a child, youth in a local, tribal, or state institution. That's goal number one. Goal two is that that transition is successful. Transition successful for further schooling and or employment. The goal is for the child to obtain a regular diploma, meaning they take courses in English, math, science, and social studies just as if they are in their regular high school. And then also to prevent them from going back, preventing youth who are at risk from dropping out of school and dropping out and returning to those correctional facilities. So those are the three primary big goals of the program. Okay? And then this is just a picture, more of a chart showing you what I just spoke of earlier in regards to the Subpart 1 and the Subpart 2 funding. So you can see where those monies go. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine. We're going to kind of just go through the funding really quickly because we want to get to the collaboration that takes place within ed and the collaboration that can take place across federal agencies at the local level, at the state level, in addition to what we're going to demonstrate. And I also want to put a plug for a session tomorrow. Delaware, raise your hand, please, first. They're going to demonstrate how justice and education work together, so please attend that session tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine.
All right, thanks, Fatima. So again, briefly, we're just going to go through the funding for Subparts 1 and Subparts 2. And so there's different funding for both of the subparts, but essentially we work from the principle of supplement, not supplant. And essentially that means that at the state level, the state should be already providing instructions to the students in addition to what the Title I Part D funds. And so for Subpart 1 funding, SEAs in all states, including DC and Puerto Rico, receive Subpart 1 funding prior to 16-17 school year. And so in the 16-17 school year, South Dakota became the one state that no longer has eligible programs that receive Subpart 1 funding. And so funds can be used for teacher professional development, transition coordinators, and juvenile detention, juvenile correction, and adult correction facilities. All right, so for Subpart 2, it's a little different than Subpart 1, of course, and it's actually funded through Title I Part A of the ESEA. And so the funds may vary from year to year to SEA depending on the programs and the students that they're serving. And so it's a little bit more flexible than Subpart 1 in that you can use it for dropout prevention programs, coordination of health and social services, mentoring and peer mediation, and then pay for success initiatives. All right, so in order to receive these funds, each state has to submit a state plan. So similar to the state plan under Title II, under Title I Part D, there's an Every Student Succeeds Act state plan, or the ESSA state plan. And so the purpose is to provide parents with quality and transparent information about what the state is providing to their children. And so essentially, in the state plan, as it relates to Title I Part D, they must have a plan for transition from the correctional facilities and the locally operated programs. And they also must have program objectives that speak to and assess the effectiveness of academic, career, and technical skills of children in the program. And also in the plan, they must also provide assurances that the agency will monitor and evaluate subgrantees. All right, so in each state, there is generally one or more Title I Part D coordinators that administer the program. And so they provide planning and funding, monitoring and compliance, and also reporting and evaluation. So right now, they're working on conducting the annual child count. They also work on processing the applications for funding, and then monitoring subgrantees and reporting data to ED every year. So we have a consolidated report where they submit data to us for us to review. And so on this slide, there's also a link provided to the information about Title I Part D coordinators. And so hopefully you can reach out and contact them as we get to the collaboration portion. We'll talk more about what kind of conversations you can have with them. All right, so through the Subpart 1 funding, about 2.5% of Subpart 1 is used for technical assistance. And so we have the National Technical Assistance Center for Education of Neglected and Delinquent Children and Youth, or NDTAC, which is what we refer to because that is a mouthful. And so with NDTAC, American Institute of Research is our contractor for that currently, and they're a national resource to states, schools, communities, and families, and they provide program administration, program implementation, conferences, webinars, issues, and briefs. And so they're a great resource to the Title I Part D coordinators that serve at the state level. And so a great starting place if you want to get more information about Title I Part D is the IndyTech website, and we provided that in the resource section part of this deck. But they have a plethora of information regarding program funding, how you can use these funds, what Title Part D coordinators, what their jobs are. All right, so now we're going to shift into collaboration. And so the Title I Part D collaborates internally and externally with several federal offices and agencies. All right, so we have the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, which of course houses the Title I Part D program, and also Title I Part A, which I mentioned previously, which funds Subpart 2. And then IndyTech is also under the Office of Elementary Secondary Education. We also have the Office of Civil Rights. And so most recently, they provided non-regulatory guidance through Dear Colleague letters that they provided to the states. And then we have OCTE, which is the Office of Career, Technical, and Education. Sorry for all these acronyms. This is how we do it at the federal government. It's a mouthful to say a lot of these terms, but you'll get the hang of it after a while. And so the OCTE provides the Workforce and Opportunity Act, and also Perkins v. And then we have OSEP, the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, also called OSERS, and they have the IDA and a Research to Practice office, as well as a focus on FAPE. And so, as mentioned previously, we have Curtis with us today from OSEP, and he'll provide more information in the next few slides about more information about that office.
Okay, Office of Special Education Program. As you can see, we service students from birth to age 21, and also under the IDA, which is the Individual with Disability Act of 2004, we have the formula grants, and the formula grants are to states, and we have discretionary grants, and discretionary grants are competitive grants that may be to states or may be to organizations to support TA. Also, under the Office of Special Education is under OSERS, and OSERS is the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. And within that, I am with the monitoring division, so we basically is doing the compliance to make sure states are doing what they should do under IDA. Also, we have what we call the Part B. Part B under IDA is the state directors. Everyone in here should be familiar with the state Part B directives under IDA. Also, we have the Part C, which is the infants and toddlers. So being familiar with the Part C, which covers from birth to 2. Also, Part C covers from 3 to 5, which is the preschool. Next slide. On this particular slide here, we have the IDA website. So this is the new website that we have. So if you go to the IDA website, you'll find a lot of information about OSEP. One of the main emphasis of this particular slide is FAPE, free appropriate education for all students. And basically what this slide is saying is that all state agencies, non-public or public, whether they have a collaboration agreement or not, is still responsible for providing free appropriate education to students with disabilities. And the SEA, which is the state education agency, is ultimately responsible to include any infrastructure they may have or delegation authorities within the state. Also, you heard earlier about the Dear Colleague letter. How many here are familiar with the IDA Dear Colleague letter? Okay. Hands should have gone up. That's a joint letter that's with DOJ, Department of Justice, and Department of Ed under IDA, Student with Disability, that was provided in 2004, December 2004, and it lays out students' rights under IDA. It lays out what the state should be doing, what the LEA should be doing, what private and non-private organizations should be doing, And if they're not doing it, then they're basically out of compliance. So it's important to really be familiar with IDA. Also, that Dear Colleague letter has 3 different parts. I don't know where Kate can get it up, but if she can't, it's not a problem.
I'm going to call for someone.
Okay, but the IDA colleague letter is basically, if you just Google IDA Dear Colleague letter, it'll come up. So it basically has 3 parts to go through quickly based on time. You have a part in the introduction section just goes through all like IEPs, who should be doing what. The second piece of that is the SEA responsibility, what they should be responsible under IDA. The third piece of that is the LEA, the Local Education Agency, and non-profit education agency, or non-public education agency, what they should be doing under IDA. So in that big picture, just give a broad overview. Also, one other document that they are not able to pull up, but it's on your virtual, so they can't put it up. You have it virtual. It's on the virtual too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Also within that, while I'm on this slide, is we have the self-assessment. The self-assessment went out to all states. It's to assess, for the states to assess within their states what are they doing in correctional education, what are they doing right, what are the things they need help with. It also was a volunteer document that goes through all the compliance issues and areas that you're talking about here. So everyone here should have some type of collaboration with IDA, Title I, Part D. We are sitting at the table, or we're the one of the enforcers of the correction with students with disability and in general ed. So that's very important to collaborate at the federal level with the partners here. Next slide, please. This slide, I'll just go quickly. This slide is basically our strands. It's what we're looking at with the strands is leadership, collaboration, you see that piece? Collaboration, we collaborate across agencies. In federal agency, we collaborate with DOJ. Octave, you talked about here, Title I, Part D. We did have collaboration with the Health and Human Services, and it's across the federal agencies. So these are our strands, and you can look at those later, look at the TA piece and accountability piece that we have here. Next slide. Okay.
All right, so we wanted to talk about our history of collaboration with the Department of Justice. And so we've had councils with them, as well as they've participated in conferences with us as well. And so the Federal Interagency Reentry Council was established in 2011, and it represented 20 federal agencies, including ED and DOJ. And so they work toward a mission of making communities safer by reducing recidivism and victimization. They assist those who return from prison and jail and becoming productive citizens, and save taxpayers' dollars by lowering the direct and collateral cost of incarceration. And so what we provided on this slide is 2 of the fact sheets that came out of that council. And so there are links there, and hopefully on your flash drive you can access them as well. And so in addition to the council, we've also had DOJ participate in the OSEP Leadership Conference and the Title I Part D Coordinators National Conference that we have every year. All right, and so here we've provided the jointly issued resources that we have. And so one is the guiding principles for providing high-quality education in juvenile justice secure settings. And so this identifies promising practices for improving educational programs. And another is a Dear Colleague letter on the civil rights of students in juvenile justice residential facilities, which I mentioned previously, which was under the Office of Civil Rights. All right, so now we're going to move to hopefully the exciting portion of our presentation. And so really how you can collaborate with Title I Part D and OSEP. And so we've placed collaboration in 3 buckets. So coordinating, learning, and sharing. And so we hope that you will coordinate your juvenile crime analysis that you conduct and making sure that the Title I Part D coordinators are sitting at that table and informing that with you. We also want you to coordinate transfer of records and credits. That is essential for us, as a large portion of the Title I Part D funds are allocated towards transition. In addition to that, coordinating possible screening methods. So when a youth enters a facility, what questions are you asking? What data are you collecting in regards to that? In addition to screening methods, professional development. So what professional development you're providing possibly to teachers in the facilities and institutions. And then also the funding application. So within the Title I Part D funding applications, the state or the local education agency is required to actually put what they're working on to coordinate with the JJDP Act. And so they should also be reaching out to you to find out how that coordination is possible. In regards to learning, it would be great to learn about the facility eligibility. So across a lot of states, it's very confusing whether a facility is eligible for Subpart 1 or Subpart 2. And so we get questions all the time about that. And so wrapping your head around that and making sure the Title I Part D coordinator is clear on what their facility is eligible for would be very helpful. In addition to that, the ESSA state plan that we mentioned earlier, there are goals outlined that would be helpful into knowing what your state, what they plan to do with Title I Part D funds. There's also a focus on the process for the Title I Part D request for proposals. And then, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble seeing the slide. Evidence-based practices. So really, what Title I Part D coordinators, what informs what they're using in the state. And so the last bucket that we hope that you share. And so sharing your monitoring universe with Title I Part D coordinators, your reentry planning requirements, possibly inviting them to the state advisory group and making sure they're there and sharing information with them related to education, making sure they're part of your committees, making sure you're part of their committees, and also the state education boards as well.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. This is a real critical piece of collaboration. As you can see at the national level, we have Department of Ed, OCTAE, OSERS, and OCR, and we're looking at OJJDP, and we collaborate with the Correction Ed Association and also NDTAC, which is Neglect and Delinquent TA Center. So it's very important at the federal level. We are collaborating across agency. We did it like 2004, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now we're in the process of revisiting the next steps in that process. We collaborate OJJDP back in 2015. They did a presentation at the OSEP conference. So it started at the federal level, moved to the state level. Really critical at the state level that the state director, or executive director, which is the Commissioner of Education, is on board. Really, really critical. And the Part B, which is the IDA Part B director, and also the coordinator at Title I Part D, who is a coordinator director. And you can see on the slide as you move down the chain, the court system is a major disconnect between the school, the court system, and juvenile justice centers when that student with disability or without disability moves from that school to the court system to the juvenile justice system. I know one of the judges spoke this morning about what they can do in the court system. Let me speak just for 1, 2, or 3 seconds on the IDA piece. It's critical that that connection be there, because if a student have an IEP, and the IEP gets to the court system, it becomes a legal document. It is a legal document, but it becomes a document where the student with a disability, the judge can implement different things in his or her program. That has to be done. So that's critical to connect with all of us to understand the process of what you're doing. And funding is also a critical piece. Moving on to the original piece, jails. An IDA, as someone talked about that this morning, one of the big problems we have is students with disability, and that's include general students. I said student with disability, I'm talking about general students too, they can't do one without the other. They're in jails, in rural areas, without being serviced under IDA in a lot of cases. And in a lot of cases, disconnected between the school system, the jail, and the facility to ensure that these services is being provided. and IDA really been on top of this. So I just want to emphasize that piece of the collaboration piece. The next slide, please. On the next slide, the value of interagency coordination. As you can see, one of the top bullets I have here on this slide is deal with mobility of students. What are those students? When I say mobility, and just make it really simple, you have Johnny may get in trouble in school, go to the facility and just go straight, finish his program in 3 months. 3 months later, he's back in trouble, back through the system. So we have to have a way of tracking it. We have to have a way of coordinating with the school district, the court system, the juvenile justice system, the social worker, the foster care, and it just goes and on. The parent, organization, on and on. So that's very important that everyone collaborates at the state and federal level. The other piece I want to emphasize is bullet number 2. It's critical in the, you can see I have a state, federal, 3 buckets. Entry in the big picture, residential, which is educational piece, re-entry, disconnect major in the entry and the exit. When students is exiting the school, have no idea, I'm speaking in general, not in all cases, that Johnny or whoever is coming back to school and they get lost in that system. So transition is critical in the back end, entry is critical in the beginning, and everyone needs to be at the table, especially in the beginning and the end. The other piece I would say on there is Jasmine's is graduation credits. It's important that the parent groups, parent, educator, and everyone here make sure that the student, if they're in the facility, they're educated, make sure their credits is moved towards graduation back to the school system. The worst thing can happen is the student have a successful program, get out, looking for his credit, and don't have them. That's a major issue. I mean that we, as educators and as advocates, has failed the student. And we don't want that to happen. And the only way we can do this is through collaboration. There are many more on that slide, but what I would do, let me move to the next slide. How can we fix this? One way to fix it is through coordination agreement. In IDA, and this is specific for IDA, in IDA 300-154 talks about coordination agreement. That coordination agreement also, we have some examples of a coordination agreement that's in your virtual tool. We're unable to show, but you go to virtual tool, you'll see. But what's critical here is for the SEA, stakeholders, LEA, juvenile facilities, have some type of coordination agreement, county jail, sheriff department, to ensure that students is provided with educational service, whether they're IDA or general ed. So I'm not gonna, for time's sake, I'm not gonna continue with it, but if you look at this, everything there is on that slide, and you can also Google it, on the OSEP, and you'll see 300-154. So with that being said, everyone should have a coordination agreement. So I really appreciate, and we'll move on.
All right, before I get into the resources, just a couple of takeaways if you leave here with nothing else from this presentation, is make sure you read the Dear Colleague letter, because if you are ever going to get in trouble with in a facility for not serving a child, most likely it would be through IDEA, especially not serving a child with a disability. So if you're not familiar with that letter, please read that letter, and if you have additional questions, our contact information is on the slide. Anything regarding IDEA, please contact Curtis. And on the next slide, as we go through it, you're going to see the mailbox for Title I-D@ed.gov. Feel free to submit any additional questions that we can address here. We're going to stay around before you head to lunch, just in case you have any additional questions. But please use that mailbox. Jasmine is my primary program officer for Title I Part D, and she's very passionate about it, if you didn't notice. And she's worked in a detention facility, so she comes to Ed with that experience, and she's committed to the work. So, and I'm here to support her. So make sure you use that mailbox. But also make sure you understand that one of our biggest challenges has to do with the transition piece.